listening to the Trevor Carey Show on the Valley's Power Talk.
CRT. We've been talking about it for quite a while, critical race theory. It's simply a training, right? Well, a lot of people think it's just part of the civil rights movement. That's how they try and sell it. And most Americans of a certain age believe that Martin Luther King's hope that, he said his kids would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And to me and many others, that's a definition of not being a racist. Now there's a new definition. And in this complaint that has been filed in San Diego, they are alleging San Diego Unified School District has engaged in unlawful discrimination against their employees. These racially biased and hostile required training programs. He actually is standing up like many are starting to realize they're going to have to do if they don't want the next generation of Americans to be brainwashed that this is a horrible country. He's the president for Californians for Equal Rights Foundation, Frank Hsu. Frank, welcome to the show, sir. Glad you're here.
Hi, thank you, Trevor, to have me here.
Yeah, now this is an actual a case that's going to court. Frank, if you can explain what a civil rights complaint is, and then explain why you have filed it down in San Diego.
We got contacted by a concerned San Diego educator in early January, and then we connected additional more teacher witnesses through our partner Christopher Rofer. And we decided that after examining all the evidences, we decided that we will file an administrative complaint against San Diego Unified School District. Right now, it's not a lawsuit. It's an administrative complaint.
Gotcha. So why now? I talked a little bit about this, unlawful discrimination against these teachers. Frank, how bad is it? What kind of training are they having to go through, and what are some of the horror stories that you've heard that, moved you guys in this direction?
Oh, well, their key programs that's under scrutiny, they are white privilege, understanding power and privilege in education. Critical self-awareness for beginners, and anti-racist leadership in our schools. And basically, they are telling the white teachers that they are spiritually murder their black students, and that's
Did you say
not
spiritually murdered their black students?
Yes, and that's what the training program tells the teachers.
Spiritually murdering. Do they go into A, B, C, and D of how you spiritually murder a child?
Well, their theory is really based on the the critical race theory, and they even redefine the discrimination. So. As you said, Dr. Martin Luther King says that we don't want us to be judged by race and skin color. But Dr. Ibram X. Kendi said that if discrimination is creating equity, then it is anti-racist, which says that's good. And if discrimination is creating inequity, then it is racist, which is bad. So basically, they are redefining the words discrimination and telling us and telling the teachers that some sort of discrimination are actually good.
That's that word equity, Frank. We're hearing it everywhere in every conversation. And when you look up the meaning of equality, that means equal. Equality is something equal that we should all strive for. Equity means fair, and they're getting to decide what's fair. And I guess some racism they're deciding is actually fair if it actually balances out to equity. Isn't it a strange world that we woke up to these last few years? Frank, it really felt like to me, I'm 55 years old, And I grew up first 13 years in Memphis, Tennessee in the South. Then we moved to California. My whole life, race relations got better. I actually looked at it as the generation I grew up with in and still am part of were the ones that really, truly transitioned it over to not being an issue. We didn't talk about it as much. It became more normal to see the blending of everybody, and we've just gone in the opposite direction lately. And, this systemic racism, I guess, Frank, they're telling some of these teachers if if a white teacher said, I don't need this training, they'll say, well, maybe you don't realize you're racist because the systemic racism, we went on Ancestry.com and found out that your great, did this, and this. So somehow it's in you. And that's crazy. And I'm glad you guys are actually fighting back. Do you actually have parents of all different races and colors involved in this?
Right now, since this is an administrative complaint, so right now we have basically educators.
Okay, so the teachers. So you're kind of representing the teachers on this that are having to go through this required training.
Correct.
All right. It violates, as you write here, the 14th Amendment, Title of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Article 1, Section 31 of the California Constitution. And, Frank, we actually have anti-discrimination laws and policies that this critical race theory actually violates in and of itself, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. As I said, if we look at the words in the Constitution, the definition of the discrimination by Dr. Abraham Candy is, of course, unconstitutional. But right now, the critical race theory and all the trainings from that theory, they all buy this idea that some racial discrimination are good, and which is unconstitutional, violates our very Constitution.
But isn't it amazing, Frank, how far this has actually moved into? It's not like you're trying to stop it from getting into the classroom. You're trying to actually get it out of the classroom. It's already in there. And I don't think a lot of parents are aware because, right now we're on day 391 of the lockdown, of the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. A lot of this has been implemented after the George Floyd situation in Minneapolis. It has been put into place, and now they're going to be getting taught right in person. And it's basically in every school district across California. And Frank is the president of Californians for Equal Rights Foundation. Frank, if there are some individuals here in the Central Valley of California, especially like you're talking about some of these educators, some of these people that work for the school district, and Frank, I know it has to be somewhat scary for these teachers to stand up because in today's climate, they'll be knocked right back down and called a racist, and their career could be in question. What's your advice to individuals here that want to stand up? Is there a starting place to start like you guys did?
Well, they have they indeed have the tactic described. They describe it as interrupting racism or calling out someone's oppressive and detrimental behavior, and that's in the training program. So what it means is that if you don't agree with me, and then we will call you out and humiliate you, and it's indeed a cult tactic. So
Good word for it. Good word, cult tactic. It is. Frank, if people here wanted to take some steps to get to where you guys are in San Diego right now, what is that first step? Filing a civil rights complaint. Do you have to get an attorney? Tell us how much hard work went into this.
Yeah, we actually are developing a framework in the Californians for Equal Rights Foundation to help the parents and educators all across the nation. And this one is the first administrative complaint in the nation. And we are also investigating another possibility for file a lawsuit against another school district. So we are developing a framework to help. So if any parent or educator has similar issues, please contact us, and we will I'll definitely contact you back.
Did you guys hear? Hey, did you hear that? Educators in the Valley here who feel like you have nobody that has your back. You just heard Frank say you can contact him. We'll get to that contact in just a moment here. But Frank, we hear hostile work environment. If this is not the definition of a hostile work environment, I don't know what is. To be with no evidence whatsoever, you've never been brought to human resources, you've never made a racist comment, you're not that individual, but you're being called out as being a racist. And I know that word is so thrown around these days, but it actually means a very hateful person. That's evil in somebody's heart who hates somebody else based upon what they look like, what their skin pigmentation, where they were born. That's not what we're about. So yes, if you're being called that, that is a very hostile work environment. I don't know how people could work under that kind of environment except shut your mouth and go along with the training and over time be convinced that 2 + 2 = 5. This is 1984 George Orwell stuff. And we've actually heard, Frank, of math now being racist. They're going to dismantle racism in math. Tell me that's not crazy.
Oh, yeah. In terms of 2 + 2 = 5, and they have a term called white fragility. So that means if you experience guilt, anger, apathy, or closed-mindedness, and you felt uneasy with the materials, and that's the evidence of white fragility. And they don't even think about that. It's just a natural reaction of their violating our constitutional rights, and they create a term, white fragility.
Okay, so if I stood up and I said I don't need to go through this, I'm not. Then that's white fragility on my part. I'm just too fragile to open up and actually look at where my hatred is based in or something. I tell you what, Frank, if they want to keep this pathway to math equity, there's that word again in Oregon. They're calling it a pathway to math equity. They're saying they see white supremacy in math classes. 10 years from now, we'll have bridges falling down and satellites falling out of the sky if 2 + 2 is not 4. I mean, we got to stay with the truth. Frank, thank you for all that you're doing there in San Diego. And if individuals here in the Valley want to know what you're up to with the Californians for Equal Rights Foundation, Frank, how can they reach out to you guys?
You can give us an email, info@cferfoundation.org. CFER spells as CFER.
info@CFER, CFER.
Foundation.org.
Foundation.org. info@CF as in Frank, ER, foundation.org. Frank will walk you through it. They filed their civil rights complaint against the San Diego Unified School District for unlawful critical race theory training. If you feel like you're in a hostile work environment, that's the way to do it. Frank, God bless you for standing up, and we have to protect our kids because we don't need to turn them against each other in the classroom. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you. There they are. Again, info@CFER, foundation.org.